Egrets and Great Blue Herons at Mason Park. This is going to be a 2-video series about long-legged waders at Mason Park. Here I'll cover the 2 egrets and the Great Blue Heron. The next video will cover the night herons, green heron, and white-faced ibis. That's not a heron, but it is a long-legged wader. This is my 8th video on the natural history of Mason Regional Park, City of Irvine, Orange County, California, part of my Field Notes series. You can see the previous titles, 1 through 5, on this slide, and the last 4, including the soon-to-be-released video number 9. If you want to see new topics in my nature series, tell me in the comments section what subjects you would like to see. So this is number 8. Here's a downloadable map showing Mason Park, especially the western part and the lake where my subjects were found. How many and how often are these waders found at Mason? Let's see a bar chart of those species from the eBird website. I'll put in the show notes any websites I use for the video, as well as put the reference on the bottom of the slides. I'm showing here the abundance over a year of the 3 species. All 3 of them can be found at any time during the year. Probably the most predictable would be the snowy egrets. So what's the difference between egrets and herons? I asked AI that question, and their answer is that the main difference is that heron is a broad family name, while egret is a common name applied to certain species within the heron family. Typically the egrets are white and have ornamental plumage. Night herons are a specific type of heron with nocturnal habits. You'll see those in the second part. Essentially all egrets are herons, but not all herons are egrets. Think about that. And night herons are herons active at night. Now, AI is using the hyphenated night heron, but I will follow eBird's spelling of night heron without a hyphen. So the first one I want to talk about is the snowy egret. I found that one of the nicknames is golden boots. So let's start with it. Here's one individual on the Mason Park Bridge. Note the field marks on the non-feathered parts of the species. The bill, black. The legs, black. The feet, yellow. Maybe that's where the nickname comes from. Here's a look of it looking at you. It looks a little forlorn. Those are yellow lores, the area before the eye. Here's looking at you, snowy egret. Individuals are generally found on the rocky lake edges, and they're usually pretty frantic in their foraging behavior. So James Kushlan in 1976 summarized the feeding behavior of 12 U.S. herons. You're going to see 6 of them on my video 1 and 2. He had a list of 28 foraging behaviors. Snowy egrets used 17 of them, more than any other species in his study. I'm going to list the feeding behaviors for each of the heron species in the videos from Kushlan's article. You can see that snowies have a very active foraging strategy. Kushlan's paper didn't include the next foraging strategy I observed from Mason's snowy egret. And that is following cormorants feeding along the edge of the lake. Fascinating. Snowy egrets interacts with double-crested cormorants. That's one of my YouTube videos in the Mason Natural History series. And it actually runs and chases after them. Here is a cormorant just surfaced right next to the snowy egret. The snowy egret also followed pied-billed grebes if they were close to shore. And here's a video I'm going to show you in the next slide showing another feeding strategy of the egret called bill-vibrating, but it was interrupted by a grebe swimming underwater very close to the egret. Could it be that the grebe was attracted to the egret position? The egret, you'll notice, then changed to a pecking strategy and captured one fish before reverting to its bill-vibrating behavior with the exit of the grebe. The video starts by showing something had submerged beyond the rock, probably the grebe. So here is the video. As you will see, the grebe came close to the egret. It came close underwater and may have created a situation where the fish prey became more exposed, helping both predator species. Bill vibrating. Switches to pecking. Where's the grebe? Whoop, there it is. Gets a fish. And then reverts back to the bill vibrating. Interesting. Let's talk about the bill vibrating from a 1973 article by the same author, James Kushlan. The abstract says that the snowy egret attracts fish by rapidly opening and closing its bill with the tip submerged in the water. In comparison with 4 other types of feeding behavior, bill vibrating was as successful as the more energetic types. In Southern California, this behavior is apparently used to attract the mosquito fish. It might be the same prey that Mason has. Observations of bill vibrating behavior suggest that imitation of other birds and individual variation in ability in part determine the use of a particular feeding techniques. However, I first saw this bill vibrating behavior at Upper Newport Bay and produced a YouTube video on it in November of 2020. I recently revised that video after I saw the Mason bird do it. Perhaps the 2020 Upper Newport Bay egret is the same individual as the Mason bird. This is a Google satellite map image. The 2 filming sites, 5 years apart, are only 1.88 miles distance. I remember very well where I filmed off the Jamboree Bridge at distance the 2020 behavior. Since snowy egrets can live up to 15 years in the wild, I can't rule out that this is the same individual at Mason as at Upper Newport Bay 5 years earlier. So here's about 30 seconds in real time of the bill vibrating behavior at Mason Park. Towards the end of this segment, the egret gets its reward. Don't blink. Pretty good. Grabs the fish out of the air. Here is the same individual, but another stretch of successful foraging. I'm going to slow this down to 1/8 speed. On September 15th, the next day, the snowy egret was still showing this bill-vibrating behavior. During about a 6.5 minutes of filming, I recorded 7 prey swallows, excluding the grebe fish opportunity, or almost a small fish a minute. Maybe it was a mosquito fish, captured with this bill technique. The next slide shows a head-on look at the behavior. It's too bad it didn't get a fish during this close-up. I got within 10 to 15 feet of the cooperative bird during filming. This is being filmed with the Nikon, basically B700 super zoom camera. Doesn't look as forlorn there. The next one I want to talk about is the great egret. This has gone through a series of name changes, both the scientific name and the common name. AI Overview says that the great egret's scientific name changed from Casmerodius albus to Ardea alba due to new evidence, likely from genetic studies revealing a different evolutionary lineage than previously understood, leading to a taxonomic reclassification into the genus Ardea. However, the second name, the specific name, didn't change. It changed its tense to match the tense of Ardea. The species has also been known by various common names, and I have called it each of these, except the last one, including American egret, common egret, and great white egret, depending upon the region and time period. And I have been known even today to slip into calling this the American egret. Here's a photo of 3 long-legged wader species at Mason. They're obviously coexisting, perhaps because of very different feeding strategies. The 2 birds on the left, and I will circle them, are snowy egrets. The 2 white birds on the lower right, one whose back is to you, are great egrets. And then I'll circle this one, the one in the back is a black-crowned night heron. A close-up view of one of the great egrets with its field marks. It's all black legs and feet, and its yellow bill, all yellow bill. On occasion, great egrets land on the very top of Mason's trees. A little surprising to see how big that bird is on the tree, but that's where it nests. Its rookeries are on tall trees. The great egret is the symbol of the National Audubon Society. It's their logo, and there's a reason. And I'll show you this in an AI overview. Plume hunting of egrets was the widespread killing of egrets for their beautiful breeding feathers, which were in high demand for the millinery trade to adorn women's hats in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This practice led to the near extinction of snowy egrets and great egrets, decimating entire breeding colonies. The slaughter was so severe that by 1900, 95% of Florida's shorebirds were killed for their plumes. That's where the main concentration of this industry was. Conservation efforts, including the formation of the National Audubon Society and the eventual ban on plume hunting around 1910, allowed egret populations to recover, although they now face threats from habitat loss. So here are the feeding behaviors. There are only 10 of them, according to Kushlan. This species is much more deliberate in its foraging behavior. I do have some video of great egrets, but it's a little bit boring to see them just standing and waiting. The third one we'll talk about on this video is the Great Blue Heron. It's often called Big Cranky. It complains a lot. If you have ever heard this bird's call, you can understand why its nickname is that. It has a very slow flight, and it looks like it's very unhappy with its condition. I chose this slide as my title picture. It's also at the Mason Parks Bridge. This is a young bird. The older the bird, the wider is the top or crown of the head. Also, studies have shown that the older the bird, the more successful it is as a hunter, as a predator. Great Blue Herons can be predators of small mammals like gophers, and I wouldn't be surprised if they preyed upon the small ducklings that occasionally are seen at Mason Park. They also are seen along the rocky shore, but could forage on open fields. Here, for comparison, is a great egret on the left and a great blue heron on the right, and its limited foraging behaviors. Again, it's a stand and wait predator. So that finishes the part 1, the 3 species. I'm going to do 4 species, one of them being the ibis, which is not a heron, on the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this. This has been another of my JDW talks. I have YouTube talks on genealogy topics, census, Ellis Island immigration and naturalization, and natural history topics, virtual birding field trips, birding optics, especially binoculars and spotting scopes, how to use them, how to adjust them, California birds, and Mason Park nature notes. Then I have some YouTubes of interest to myself. If you want to know when the next one comes out, please subscribe to my series. So enjoy the outdoors of Orange County, California. I hope you're enjoying seeing these species through my eyes.